Hola, Mario.
Hola, how are you?
I'm good. ¿Cómo estás? How are you?
Very well, very well.
Yeah.
I am happy to be here. I hope to uh, do well.
Yes, I'm also happy. So today my guest is José Mario Martínez. He's Emeritus Professor at the Applied Mathematics Department of the University of Campinas in Brazil. He's the author of 2 books, around 200 papers, and several software packages for optimization. His research interests include applied mathematics, optimization, and numerical analysis. Currently, he's part of the editorial board of the journals Numerical Algorithms, Optimization Methods and Software, and eJOR. Mario was a recipient of the Order of Scientific Merit of the Brazilian Ministry of Science. He's a member of the Brazilian Academy of Sciences and a SIAM Fellow. In 2023, he received the Su Buchin Prize from the International Council for Industrial and Applied Mathematics. Mario, you are a legend. I'm so honored that you have accepted the invitation. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. So Mario, I know you grew up in Argentina, but you were actually born in Spain in 1948, right?
Yes, I grew up in Argentina. In fact, if somebody asks me what I am, I say I am Argentinian. But in fact, I was born in Spain in 1948, as you say, more precisely in Asturias, which is a beautiful province in the north of Spain. I was born in a village called Cangas del Narcea, in a family that was very punished by the Civil War. You know, the Spanish Civil War took place between 1936 and 1939, and it pitted democratic, liberal, and left-wing forces against rightist and fascist forces. And, the fascism was supported by the fascist regimes at that time, that is Germany and Italy. My father and several of my uncles participated in the Civil War on the Democratic Republican side. Several of them, including my father, was a left-wing militant. My uncle Mario, my mother's brother, died in the war, and because of him is that I am called Mario. And at the end of the war, my uncle Pepe, which is the nickname of Jose, also my mother's brother, escaped to France. But when the Nazis invaded France, he was captured and interned in the Nazi concentration camp, where he died in 1942. And well, this is the reason when I am called Jose. So I am Jose and Mario because of 2 of my uncles that died in the war. Well, my family learned of the death of Pepe after the end of the World War, and surely his disappearance for several years, the lack of knowledge of where he was, and finally his death was a terrible trauma for my mother, from which, in fact, I think that she never recovered. My father had better luck because at the end of the war, when he was far from Cangas, our village, he managed to return to the village where they did not know of his actions in the war, and therefore he avoided being killed. In spite of that, he was imprisoned and had to participate in a forced labor battalion for 3 years. When he returned to the village, he continued to be a left-wing militant, for which he took on various dangers and a new imprisonment. Well, all my life is strongly influenced by this family past. My mother and father, in fact, my mother and father, when they met talking about the war and talking about the misfortunes that they had in the war.
Yes, I'm sorry to hear about what happened to your uncles. I understand that not only them, but your father was involved, right, in the Spanish Civil War. And why did your family decide to move to Argentina specifically?
Well, there were 2 reasons. One of them is a common reason to many Spanish people that went to Argentina, is that Spain was going through a terrible time economically, where we were really poor and where there would be no room for me to get an education. My parents' goal was to give me a good education. I am my only child, okay? Mm-hmm. The other reason, I think, is that the dangers that my father assumed as a left-wing militant were difficult for my mother to bear. This reason was never explicit in the family. Nobody talks about this, but I think this was very present because life in those times for a militant was really dangerous. Moreover, in Argentina, my father already had 3 brothers, so it was a natural place to emigrate, as many other Spaniards did. Another alternative would be going to Mexico, where my mother had 1 brother, but okay, we went to Argentina. And that's it. And my father went to Argentina when I was 1.5 years, and my mother and I followed him when I was 3 years old.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you arrived in 1951 in Argentina.
1951, yes, yes.
And what did your father do for a living in Buenos Aires? I assume that you came to Buenos Aires, correct?
To Buenos Aires, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, in the early days that he was in Buenos Aires, my father worked as a factory worker. Then he worked as an employee in a bar in downtown Buenos Aires. And finally, a few years later, he owned a small bar in the port region of Buenos Aires, a very, very small and humble bar in partnership with his brother, Roman.
Mm-hmm. And how about your mother?
Well, my mother took care of the house and worked for a tailor as a trouser maker. She has this profession. It was the trade that she had learned in Cangas, and she already practiced it in our village. Well, in fact, we were a lower middle class family, and we lived in a small rented house in a neighborhood where the street was not asphalted and there were no drains. Well, then it got better and better, but the people, our neighbors, were really poor people, laborers, public employees, nurses. There was only 1 family that had a car and a TV.
Wow. Yes, I can understand that it was very challenging for your family. And Mario, you have lived under 5 dictatorship regimes. Could you briefly, if possible, walk us through them?
Okay, I don't know if it is possible because really I lived under 5 dictatorships, regimes, as you say. The first one was Franco's dictatorship in Spain, because I was born in 1948 when Franco was the dictator. Then when we came to Argentina, well, only in 1955, the government of Perón was overthrown by a military coup, and we lived under dictatorship until 1958. So we have 2 now. Then the military called for elections, but the Peronist party was banned, and the civilian government began, which was overthrown again by the military in 1962. Thus, in 1963, a new civilian government began, again without Peronism, which continued to be outlawed, and this government was overthrown by military coup in 1966. It began the 3rd dictatorship of my life, and this is the more meaningful for me because it was the one that I fought against as a university student. Well, I was a militant as well as a university student. In fact, in 1968, I was not very lucky, and I was imprisoned 3 times, okay? But no, nothing very serious, I mean, it was 15 days each time, so but very, very simple things. Okay, then at least finally in 1973, this dictatorship finished, and now without the proscription of Peronism, it began a democratic government, a popular government that ended very badly because it was taken over by a fascist gangs and ended in a bloody military coup in 1976. And then in 1976 began the most terrible of the Argentine military dictatorships, which was the one that led me to exile in Brazil. But well, in Brazil there was another military dictatorship, and this is the 5th one, which in comparison to the Argentine one, well, it was very, very, very soft. So I stayed in Brazil with my family, my wife and my older son, and I hope that this was the last dictatorship of my life. I hope so.
Yes, I also hope so. Yes, well, 3 countries, 5 dictatorships. What a life. What did you like to read in your early years?
Well, actually, I read a lot when I was very young. My parents encouraged me to read. I learned to read and write before I went to regular school. And later I had a teacher that kept a library in our class where we would choose a book every weekend. Well, I read Jules Verne, okay. I say in Spanish usually Julio Verne, okay. Emilio Salgari, which was an author of pirate novels whose characters were Sandokan, the Black Corsary, the Pirate Morgan, things like that. And several Spanish authors that my father liked, like Juan Ramón Jiménez, who was Nobel Prize for Literature around 1957, I think. Well, I read Don Quixote, Don Quixote de la Mancha when I was 11. I cannot say that I liked it very much, that I enjoyed very much when I was 11, you know. But I thought I had to read it because I wanted to be an intellectual, okay? Maybe a writer or a scientist or something. So I thought that, well, everybody should read Don Quixote at 11 years old.
That's a big book, right?
It's a book like this. But okay, and when I was a boy, in fact, I started writing stories, some poems, things that are like poems, not exactly poems, and things like that. Okay.
Yes, we're going to talk about this later. Having grown up during the 50s and 60s, what was your soundtrack at that time?
Well, my generation is the generation of the Beatles. So I say everybody in my generation, I was a Beatles fan. I also loved Janis Joplin more intensely than Beatles. I mean, I loved Janis Joplin very, very, very intensely. I liked rock, Argentinian rock. I remember groups, some groups that I liked, that other I forgot. Almendra, Manal were two groups that I liked very much. There was one group that was called Box Day that had a very interesting music that about the Bible. So they had an album called The Bible. I can't remember it now. Well, I liked jazz, especially Charlie Parker. Although there was a traditional jazz group in Buenos Aires called the Antigua Jazz Band that played on the old jazz, the previous jazz. And finally, tango, milonga. I know a lot of tangos by heart. And of course, Astor Piazzolla. Well. And there are two pieces of music in my life that made me cry. One of them is called the Ballada for the South Cross. I don't know if the translation is correct. Balada para la Cruz del Sur is in Spanish.
Yes.
Which tells the story of four daughters of the South Cross, you know, the constellation, the South Cross, who were born in Buenos Aires and lived four tragic lives. So the balada tells the story of the four daughters of the South Cross. And I simply listened to this music the first time I cried. My parents, I lived with my parents at that time. I was maybe 17, something like that. And they said, "What is wrong with you? What happens with you?" And I said, "No, I am crying because of the emotion of this music." They didn't believe. So this balada, this music is from Astor Piazzolla with the text of Horacio Ferrer. And I also used to cry many times listening to Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin was very intense for me, for my heart. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I know Libertango from Piazzolla.
Yeah,
that's a very good piece, yes. And I mean, Charlie Garcia and Sui Generis, that came after you.
When Charlie Garcia appeared, I was already in Brazil.
Yes.
So, in fact, I really don't know very well with Charlie Garcia, you know. Yes, I liked, I heard, but no, I don't know. No, I don't know very well.
Yeah, like Fito Paz also.
Fito Paz also appeared when I was in Brazil, and that time I was more interested in Brazilian music. Okay, I must talk about Brazilian music. I love Brazilian.
Yes, please.
Well,
what do you like?
MPB, or
Brazilian popular music.
Yeah, popular music. Gal Costa, who died last year.
Yeah.
I cried because she died, you know.
Wow.
Maria Bethania, Caetano Veloso, Chico Buarque, Milton Nascimento, well, all these people is fantastic, okay? Vinicius de Moraes, Caymmi, okay, I like very much Brazilian music.
Yes.
For me,
yeah.
I should say that I like Brazilian music more than Argentinian music, except perhaps for tango. Tango, well, I like.
Right, got it. And talking about tango, is it true that people did not dance tango in your generation?
I think that my generation is the only generation that didn't dance tango at all. So I didn't dance tango. The previous generation, 3 or 4 years older than me, they dance tango, and presently everybody dance tango because they teach tango in the schools. So yes, in my generation, nobody danced tango. Nobody knew how to dance decently tango. I mean, you could dance, but very badly. Sometimes I meet people abroad and they say me, oh, we go to Argentina to learn tango. Oh, okay, they think that I dance tango, but okay, what can I say? Well, I hope that you will learn to dance tango well, but I don't dance tango.
Okay. Did you have any interest in sports?
I'm not good at sports. Of course, when I was young, I played football, soccer, okay. I was not good, but since I was a good friend of the guys who were good, they put me on the team. Maybe I was a reasonable goalkeeper. I was a goalkeeper because it was easier to be goalkeeper because I didn't know how to play well with the legs.
I see. Which soccer teams do you support in Argentina and Brazil?
In Argentina, like many Spaniards, I support San Lorenzo. People usually don't know why there are so many Spanish people in Argentina who support San Lorenzo. I want to explain you why.
Yes, please.
The reason is that in 1947, San Lorenzo was the best team of Argentina. It was the champion, though it was the champion in 1946. And they made a long tour in Spain. It is usually said that San Lorenzo told the Spanish teams how to play. So many Spaniards just knew San Lorenzo as the only team they knew in Argentina. Okay, so when they come to Argentina, and this is what happened with my father, they become supporters of San Lorenzo. So, okay, this is the reason why many Spanish people support San Lorenzo in Argentina. Nowadays, San Lorenzo is known, especially because it is the team of the Pope. You know, perhaps you know. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Pope is a fanatic supporter of San Lorenzo.
So you don't like Boca Juniors or River Plate?
Oh, well, you know, I don't hate Boca, but I hate River. Yes, yeah, because in the neighborhood where I lived, my friends, the neighborhood was rather close to the River Stadium, so everybody were supporters of River, and I was a minority being supporter of San Lorenzo, and sometimes, well, this made me to hate River at all. I remember several games between San Lorenzo and River where I think that, well, San Lorenzo deserves to win and didn't win, things like that. Okay, but I don't hate Boca. Boca is natural for me. In fact, San Lorenzo usually gains from to Boca. This is not the case with River.
I see. Yeah, fair enough. But what about Brazil? I asked also which team do you support in Brazil?
Okay. In Brazil, I support Guarani. Guarani is the team of one of the teams of Campinas. Perhaps you want to know why I support Guarani and not the other team of Campinas.
Yeah, Ponte Preta.
Ponte Preta, no?
Yes.
Well, the reason is that when I came to Campinas, I was fond of football, and I have a son of 2 years old, and I decided that I would like that to go to a stadium with my son. So I went alone to both stadiums to see games, and to the stadium of Guarani and the stadium of Ponte Preta. And I realized that the stadium of Guarani was much more safe than the stadium of Ponte Preta, especially for going with a 2-year-old baby. So I decided to support Guarani for this reason, and only for this reason.
Yes.
But I don't hate Ponte Preta. So I am a not usual supporter of Guarani.
Right. So the name of the stadium is Brinco de Ouro da Princesa.
Brinco de Oro da Princesa.
Yes, it's
Yes,
like
yes.
the golden earring of the princess.
That's right.
Still talking about sports, Mario, I was always a big fan of Formula One. And when you think of the best drivers in history, it is impossible to leave Juan Manuel Fangio out of the conversation. I know you were still a kid when he won all 5 of his championships, but do you have any recollections of that period and the reaction in Argentina to his titles?
Yeah, well, when Fangio was champion 5 times, I was between maybe 4 and 9 or 4 or 10 years old. I must say that, Fangio was a great idol in Argentina. He was world champion 5 times and he died very old. So he was present in all the Argentinian history. He accompanied Argentinian history. When I was 7 or 8 years old, more precisely, that was in the last years of the first government of Perón, Argentina had Fangio and had a world champion of box, a boxer called Pascualito Pérez. And everybody used to believe that besides that, Argentina had the best football team in the world. So I believed that time that Argentina was the more important country in the world. I was convinced of that. I have in my mind that what I thought about Argentina, well, nothing is similar to Argentina in the world. Well, later I was not very interested in Formula One, although I remember famous pilots of childhood, like Stirling Moss, Peter Collins, and so on. In Argentina, I was interested in other type of car competition that was called Turismo de Carretera, which can be translated as road tourism. There were races in the roads and the common roads, and the cars were common cars of the 40s that were modified. They cut the car and to make it more aerodynamic and so on. They put another motor and so on by very skillful mechanics people. And the consequence is that all the cars were different. So it was very picturesque because you were seeing all the cars and you knew the cars because all they were different cars. But now I believe that all the cars, even in the Turismo de Carretera, are all the same thing. So I don't think it is interesting anymore.
Mm-hmm. And did you enjoy movies, painting, or other forms of art in your youth?
Well, sure. Concerning movies, well, I loved Godard, Resnais, Fellini, Antonioni, Bergman, all these cult directors. During some years in my youth, I needed to walk from the rail station Retiro to the center of Buenos Aires. Doesn't matter why, but okay. It was about 12 blocks. And there are several art galleries in the Florida Street. I walked through Florida Street that I used to visit, becoming fan of several Argentinian painters. I remember a painter called Deira, Macho, De la Vega, in general, expressionist Argentinian style, I should say. I don't know, okay? However, what I really love is theater. One of the lives that I did not live, and I am not going to live, sure, is the life of a theater director. I cannot see, when I see a play, a theater play, all the time I am thinking things like, well, I could do this in that way or another way. And many times, well, this guy really solved the problem. I tend to think in terms of solving the problem, how he solved the problem of presenting this play that perhaps is an old play of Molière, of Lope de Vega, or anything. I say, well, how he's going to do this? This question of solving problem that appears to me when I see okay, I am a fan of a school of Argentinian theater called Sainete, which is a traditional type of plays that evoke the first half of the 20th century, the realist thing of this part of the century.
Wow. We're going to revisit this topic toward the end of our conversation. So now I understand where you got the motivation to, write about plays and things like that. Okay, so do you have access to good education in Buenos Aires?
Oh, sure. Education in Argentina was very good. Public education was very good when I was young. In fact, as I told you, my parents' goal was to give me a good education. And I think I felt that goal very strongly when I was a child. I attended public primary and secondary schools, and I was a very good student, well, usually the best of the class.
Wow.
I think that good public education was preserved until the last dictatorship, which destroyed it. Really, it destroyed it. Unfortunately, as I am usually told, public primary and secondary schools are not as good as they used to be. So now it's like in Brazil. They send,
Yes, like in Brazil, exactly.
They send the children, if they can, they send to private schools because, well, public schools don't have the same level.
Yeah, it's a pity. Yeah.
It's a real pity because Argentina was very different from other countries of Latin America in this sense, and now I think the same thing.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I feel sorry about this, not only for Argentina, but also for Brazil. It appears that you had an early interest in chemistry and then biology, correct?
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, I always said that I wanted to be a chemist. Well, I also wanted to be a writer, but this is another story. When I got to secondary school, it turned out that I loved biology. Then I decided to become a doctor. I decided to become a doctor, but well, in the last years of secondary school, I came in contact with philosophy because I had a professor who made us read Theory of Knowledge by a Kantian philosopher called Johann Hesse. Very nice book, very good book. This size only. It tells all the schools of epistemology, and a fantastic book. Well, the consequence of this is that during the last year of secondary school, I began to prepare myself to enter to the Faculty of Medicine. There was a preparatory course that you could take when you were at the school, and on a critical day of my life, I finished my preparation for the chemistry exam. I was at home, I closed the notebook, I went to bed and thought, my God, I don't want to be a doctor. What I want to be is to be in touch with philosophy, not with biology or medicine. So that night I decided to give up the pre-med course, and that's it.
But you still went to do the exam, right? For a different motivation.
Okay. I went to the exam because I wanted to give answers to a friend. Okay. The result is that this friend actually became a doctor. He is currently retired, and he has been a good medical professional, as far as I know. Okay.
Yes, that's a very good story. So you started psychology at the University of Buenos Aires before switching to mathematics. How did that happen?
Well, it was a mess. I started psychology because I wanted to be close to philosophy, as I told you. I was wrong because, well, both subjects were studied in the same faculty, the Faculty of Filosofía y Letras. But when I began to study psychology, I discovered that it was not as close to philosophy as I had expected. So I started mathematics at the same time, just to be closer to philosophy. For some years, I studied psychology and mathematics simultaneously. It was not very easy. It was a mess, and it was too much. So for some years, a few years, I gave up mathematics, and I continued studying psychology. But when I had completed 4 years, that is to say 80% of the course, I said, oh my God, I don't want to be a psychologist. So I went back to mathematics, and this is time until today, okay?
Yeah, so in those years, there was a lot of back and forth until you settled in mathematics.
That's right. I only starting from a mistake that I liked philosophy, and so I don't know why I didn't choose philosophy from the beginning, but perhaps because I thought that it is not possible to work as a philosopher. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was for that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Well, however, I don't regret. I mean,
no, sure.
I am happy being a mathematician.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a strong connection between philosophy and mathematics anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you graduated in 1971 and you received an equivalent to a master's degree, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what is the topic of your master's research?
Well, as I told you, in studying mathematics, my objective in studying mathematics is to be as close as possible to philosophy. So I was inclined towards set theory, foundations, and things like that, logic, and things like that. The opportunity came when the faculty received the visit of a professor whose name was Ernesto Corominas, a Spaniard who was working in Lyon and was giving a course on ordinal algebra. Well, I loved the subject, the transfinite world and so on, transfinite Cantor and this stuff. So I wrote a thesis, following his suggestion. I wrote a thesis on trees in the ordinal sense. You know, a tree is a type of graph, not you have the vegetal tree, but there is a type of graph, finite, of course, but imagine that an infinite tree, but not only an infinite tree, an ordinal infinite tree, so that after the infinite, it comes other infinites and so on. Well, it's a fantastic universe. So I wrote this master thesis, or it was not called thesis or seminar. When I finished my thesis, I got my degree. I sent the thesis to Professor Corominas, who that time was back in Lyon. And to my surprise, he wrote to another professor who was his friend in Buenos Aires saying, I got an assistant position for Martinez. Please convince him that he come and made PhD with me. I hadn't asked him to get an assistant position, but he did that because, he liked me. I don't know. But at that time, it was impossible for me to move to Lyon because of family plans. I didn't want to leave Buenos Aires, so this was the end of my career as an ordinal algebraist.
You became teaching assistant at the University of Buenos Aires around 1970, even before graduating. What did you study in the years following your graduation?
Yeah, okay. Since continuing studying and doing research in ordinal algebra was out of question, of course, I tried to find another subject associated to philosophy in some sense that I could study and doing research alone. You know, I wanted to do research alone. This is crazy, okay? I was very young, okay? It turns out that I knew the existence of non-standard analysis, which is a form of analysis in which infinitesimals become real entities without coming to contradictions. There is a book of a guy called Abraham Robinson with this title, Non-Standard Analysis. Nobody knew anything about this topic in Buenos Aires, but I talked to a professor who said, oh, my friend, I don't remember the name, of Peter something. In the US, it's very nice and would love to advise you, but of course you need to go to study there. So I thought, my God, everybody wants to take me out of Buenos Aires, but I don't want to leave Buenos Aires. Although I had already written some stuff that seemed to be new, I don't know, I realized that my future as non-standard analyst was over as well. In this way, we arrived to 1973, the dictatorship finishes, and a popular government takes office. So some colleagues and myself of mathematics and physics thought, what will we do? Are we going to spend our lives doing research in abstract and non-applicable pure science? Oh, no. It is time to serve our country. Therefore, we began to study hydraulics in contact with a good national laboratory that that time was called National Hydraulics Laboratory and presently still exists, as far as I know, with other name. Well, at that time, we were strong supporters of the government, but by that time, I also married with Anna, who is my wife up to the present. Presently, we have 2 sons and 2 grandchildren. This is another story.
Yes. But in 1974, you were forced to quit your job and you ended up in Bariloche. Could you explain what happened?
I was not forced to quit my job. I was fired, okay? The current
yes, I wanted to put it in a nicer way.
Politically correct way, but no, okay, I was fired. After the death of Perón, the popular government was captured by a fascist gang and ceased to be popular at all. This happened in 1974. Perón died July 1st of 1974. when he was the president. He left his wife as president of Argentina. In September 74, the fascist gang closed the university, named new extreme right authorities, and fired all the supporters of the popular regime. So I was fired, as many other colleagues around the country, and needed to find another job. So after 6 months, I and several other colleagues were hired by the Bariloche Foundation, which was a private institution, although basically supported by the state, that was dedicated to research in several areas of science. Bariloche is in the south of Argentina, next to the mountains of Andes. It is a beautiful place, really a paradise. But in Bariloche, nobody did ordinal algebra or non-standard analysis or hydraulics. They did optimization. This is the reason why I became an optimization guy. So it was not a question of vocation, of nothing very special. It was just the type of mathematics that was done in the Bariloche Foundation. I was hired there. My wife Anna also was, and well, some other friends. And our boss was Professor Hugo Skolnick, who had obtained his PhD in Zurich and ruled the group in the last 5 or 6 years, the group of optimization in Bariloche. We were very happy in Bariloche, where we decided to pass the rest of our lives, and our first child was born. Moreover, I finished up liking optimization and had begun to write something new when, guess what happened? A military coup occurs, and although the democratic regime was essentially fascist, it was not fascist enough. So the militaries took power and initiated the most tragic period of Argentinian history. As a consequence, although Bariloche and the foundation was a safe place for the fascist gang that was in the government before the coup, it was not safe enough for the militaries. In a few months, it became clear that for us that we must leave, not only Bariloche, but also the country.
So choosing optimization was not really much of a choice, and
No.
leaving Argentina was also not something that you have.
No.
Yeah.
Many things in life are not choices.
Yeah.
I tell
Just have
this
to
to
go
my
with the
students.
flow.
I tell this to my students many times. Choosing. Okay, there are opportunities and there are external circumstances that make you take decisions, and that's it. Life is
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So in 1976, you left Argentina and moved to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil.
Yeah.
And what happened then? Did you find a job in Brazil? Were you able to continue with your studies?
Well, the story is this. In Bariloche, before we came to Bariloche, they had developed a world model that was called the Latin American World Model, also called the Bariloche model. The director of this model was a scientist, a geology and sociology and universal guy called Amilcar Herrera, who had the idea of the model. Now I will tell you which is the idea. And the mathematical director of the model, the one who made the software and so on, was Hugo Skolnick, our boss. The idea of the model was rather simple. Okay, the models said that, well, the problems in the world, the excess of population, natural resources, and so on, these problems could be solved if there was some kind of universal government or some kind of cooperation. The clear word is cooperation between different countries that could planify the economies in a coordinated way. And in that way, there is not going to be excess of population and poverty and so on. This was a conceptual idea, a conceptual model, more complicated than I am saying now, but okay, it was a conceptual model. And all this was put in mathematical terms and became a code, a computer code that they ran with different scenarios and so on. So Hugo, as the mathematical leader of the model, had traveled all around the world, presenting the model in conferences and so on. He had become close friend to Candido Mendes. Candido Mendes was the rector of the faculty, the University Candido Mendes, that is called Candido Mendes because of his grandfather, not because of him. A very interesting person, sociologist, and so, well, a very, very nice person. So when Hugo, at the beginning of 76, when the militaries took office, told Candido Mendes that perhaps we are going to be in difficulties, Candido said, well, all your team come to Rio and I will hire all of them. I don't know if Candido thought that we would do that effectively, but the fact is that we did that. Okay. In July 1976, myself, my wife, Hugo, and other people just arrived to Rio, and Hugo went to see Candido and said, well, we are here. And Candido he died, I think, 2 years ago.
Oh.
Was an extraordinary person. He's a hero for me in my life because I don't know what he thought about us, but he said, well, I promised that, so I hire you. And he hired us in impossible conditions because we don't have the documents, the documents that but he did something. I don't know what, because he had connections and so on. And they put a stamp in our passport of the United Nations. I don't know how he did that, but okay. And we are hired in Rio, in the University Candido Mendes, just to take care of the model, of the world model. In fact, I was not very involved with taking care of the world. I know the world model because it was discussed, I discussed the things and so on, but I was not very specifically involved in the model. In fact, Hugo went to the university and he knew Nelson Maculan. Hugo was hired as part-time professor in the university, and I and other people of our group said, well, let's use the PhD program of the university, specifically of the COPE, the engineering program where Nelson Maculan was. And and that's it. I was in Rio. I came to Rio. I was theoretically working for Candido Mendes University and preparing my PhD in COPE.
Right. So that's the story of how you came to Brazil.
Yeah, I had a good salary. Okay, so it was really comfortable. The only thing is that, in fact, we missed a lot Bariloche. Okay, but Rio de Janeiro is very different from Bariloche, and we prefer Bariloche.
Yes. I appreciate your honesty. Not sure the guys from Rio will be happy about this, but come on. Mario, your PhD research was related to the numerical solution of nonlinear systems. Where did you find the inspiration for choosing this topic? I assume you had a chance to choose this time.
Okay, so first let me talk about the crucial thing in my life, that in Rio we met Nelson Maculan. So I enrolled in the PhD program, and Nelson Maculan shares with Candido Mendes the position of genius hero of my life, okay? Because he opened the doors of the institution, of the COPE. He gave us all sorts of facilities, and he avoided every bureaucratic requirements that are usually demanded at university. So for Nelson, Nelson, okay,
sure.
Bureaucracy does not exist. He passed over bureaucracy all the time, and he did that. I acknowledge him in an eternal way, Our legal situation in Brazil was not very comfortable, but we did not have any reasonable document to stay in the country, okay? But it was reasonable enough for Nelson Maculan. Okay, so I need to say that because, Nelson is my second Brazilian hero. No, first Brazilian hero. He shares it with Candido.
He's the hero of many people in Brazil, trust me.
Many people in Brazil, I know. So I was enrolled in this PhD program. I had the freedom of write a thesis in any subject. Yes, I had come from Bariloche with some ideas, but not enough for a thesis. For some reason, I decided that the library at the PUC, Pontifical Catholic University was the most friendly one. I don't remember why, really, I don't remember. So I used to go there to read the mathematical journals related with the subjects that I was aware of. I found a couple of novel methods that had been introduced those years for solving systems of nonlinear equations, and I said, I think that I can generalize this stuff. So I sat down and essentially wrote my thesis. The problem was that nobody in Brazil was interested in the area. Of course, Hugo was very busy working with the model application, so I decided to send the main part of my thesis to a couple of professors in the US that knew about the subject. John Dennis and David Gay, both were very kind. David Gay commented many parts of my text and even corrected my English and style. John Dennis was enthusiastic and became my friend, with whom I have contact up to now. I worked together then when I was in the US and so on. As a consequence, I sent this part of the thesis to SIAM Journal of Numerical Analysis as a single authored paper, and it was accepted. Then it was clear that the work deserves to be a PhD thesis, and completed the work with 2 other papers and became a doctor of Cope in March 78.
Wow. I assume you implemented your numerical routines in Fortran, but where did you run the experiments?
Yes, I wrote codes in Fortran. I still write codes. I like to write in codes. I enjoy very much. Again, for some reason that I don't remember, we had an account in the CBPF, the computer account, the CBPF, Centro Brasileiro de Pesquisa Física, Brazilian Center of
Physics Research.
Physics Research. So I ran my codes in CBPF. As you see, I traveled very much in Rio with my Fusca, my car, going from Ipanema, where we worked, to Fundão, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, to Botafogo, where the CBPF was, to the PUC that is in the Gavea, okay? Now it seems crazy for me. I say, well, I did all that thing. I didn't stay in the COPE all that. I don't know. I don't remember. I was very young. I think that this is the main reason. Okay.
Yes, I understand. Yeah. Sometimes we look back and question ourselves, how did we do it? Yes, it seems like it's another self of ours that was there and did it, and now we wonder.
You know, when I decided to buy a car in Rio, they told me that in Rio the cars were not good because of the sea and the air of the sea, and so I decided to go to São Paulo to buy a car. So I went to São Paulo to buy a car. I bought the car the same day that I was in São Paulo. I took the car. I came back to Rio. So I leave São Paulo. You know, it's completely crazy. I entered then to Rio. I don't know why I didn't get lost or. No. I was young. Okay.
So you went from São Paulo to Rio driving your new Fusca.
Yeah.
It's like a Beetle, a Volks Beetle car. Yes. So 1978 was a very important year in your life. You got your PhD. Argentina won the World Cup for the first time. You joined Unicamp in Campinas. And as you said, you started to support Guarani, who won the national championship in that year. Let's break down a couple of these events, starting with being recruited by Unicamp. How did you find a job there?
Well, when I fed my PhD, I felt the necessity of working in some public university. You know, Candido Mendes University was a private university. When I came to Rio, Candido said, well, I am going to create a course of mathematics, but this was not a real project for him. So there was not going to be a course of mathematics or engineering or anything. It was essentially human sciences there. So I felt the necessity of working in some public university. I have a friend who worked in Unicamp, and he told me that I should talk with the head of the Department of Mathematics and to ask for the job. This is what I did. I came to Campinas, I gave a talk, and they decided to hire me. It was very easy. It was very easy at that time because there were no candidates with PhD. Usually the department hired merely masters or even graduates and sent them with salary to make PhD abroad. Therefore, for a new professor with a PhD, it was very easy to be hired. Moreover, nobody did continuous optimization in the department. I was the first. and I was young, and I liked to teach. So very soon I became very popular with the students. I had a lot of master's students. Well, at that time, the young students liked the idea of studying optimization. It was kind of fashionable. I don't think it is so fashionable now. Well, now people think it's in machine learning and things like that. But at that time, well, the role of machine learning was occupied by optimization. So, well, I initiated my career advising optimization thesis at that time.
Yes, we're going to talk about that soon. Now let's talk about the 1970 World Cup, which was held in Argentina. Do you think Argentina deserved to win the championship? The match against Peru seemed quite suspicious, don't you think?
Oh, this is a very delicate subject. I could say I don't want to talk about that now. Okay, I think that Argentina had the best team in 1975. The coach was Cesar Menotti. He was a very serious guy. He was a leftist, you know. He was very
yes, he died recently, right, Cesar Menotti?
He died. He died last year, I think.
Yeah, last year, yes.
Yeah. And I even have a friend that sustains that Pepe Guardiola, learned his style of coaching from Menotti. He's an Argentinian friend, so you cannot take it very seriously. However, it is well known that the militaries, the president went to talk with Peruvian players before the match. They went to the locker rooms before the match, and of course they pressed the Peruvian team. Argentina won 6-0. There was a clearly illegal press. So it was not easy. It must not be easy for the Peruvian players, of course, because you are in the locker room and you receive the visit of those monsters and you know what is happening in Argentina. Okay. Unfortunately, this is the history. Okay. I don't think that what happened is that, well, they give money or so. No money. It was just a psychological pressure. They entered in a situation of... Okay, that's right. But I think that Argentina was the best team anyway.
Yeah, that's debatable. But I'll let you go by this time. Mario, I saw in one of your interviews that you stayed at the Mineirão Stadium when you attended the first conference of the Brazilian Society of Computational and Applied Mathematics, also in 1978, which was then called the First National Symposium on Numerical Calculus. Could you share a bit about this story?
This is a funny story. It was, in fact, the first Congress of Computational and Applied Mathematics. This was the place where the Brazilian Society was founded during this Congress. As you said, the name of the Congress was not Congress of Computational and Applied Mathematics, but was Symposio of Cálculo Numérico. I was not an important person in this event at all, so they put me and many others in the bedrooms of the Mineirão, the stadium, the stadium of Belo Horizonte.
Yes.
The government of Belo Horizonte.
It's a big stadium.
A big stadium. In fact, it was a single bedroom with about 50 beds, more or less. But at night, the bedroom was invaded by the whole cloud of millions and millions of mosquitoes that bit us horrible over the night, so that we need to cover ourselves in spite of the very hot temperature. This was the first night, and the second night it was different because I bought a box of spiders. That makes smoke for killing mosquitoes.
Okay.
So I bought a box and put a lot of spiders all around my bed. And I put the spiders and made a lot of smoke. And I didn't die, okay, but I have no problems with mosquitoes at all. And I think none of my neighbors had any problem, thanks to my idea.
Yes, you inhaled some smoke, but you survived.
Yes. I don't regret to do that, to having do that. Yeah. Okay, then this is the story.
Staying at the stadium, looking back now, it seemed a bit unusual, right?
Completely unusual, of course. We didn't expect to stay in the stadium. I arrived there by bus, of course. Well, we are here, so all the people are all boys, you know. And they said, oh, well, you are going to stay in the stadium. Okay, so let's go.
Yeah, that was the stadium that Brazil lost to Germany, that
The
7-1 match.
yes.
In the Brazilian World Cup. Mario, how did you begin your research activities at Unicamp?
Well, I encountered, when I arrived to Unicamp, I encountered a postgraduate program that was just in the beginning, as I told you. And there was a good number of master students that needed advisor. So in the first times, what I needed to do is just to adapt myself to Campinas, to teach several courses of numerical analysis and optimization, and to find a master thesis for the young guys that needed advice. So, as I told you, I was young, I was a good teacher. Students liked me, and they desired to write dissertations under my advice. I accepted everybody, and that's it. I advised my first thesis were theses in epidemiological models, then other theses of optimization. I advised the thesis about tuberculosis that was inspired in a master thesis, I think that of Gauss Cordeiro, who is a very well-known professor. Okay, and that's it. And I advised many other theses.
Right. So you basically started working on optimization problems arising in disease control.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
The idea that we took for this dissertation, that I think that the author was Gauss Cordeiro, but I'm not completely sure. It was a master dissertation. He had defined the problem as a control problem in which the trajectory of decrease of the disease. There was a planified trajectory of decrease, but they established, well, this is going to be the trajectory of the decrease of the disease, and you need to find the controls that allow to achieve this decrease. This is the thesis of the thesis of Gauss. And this gave a linear programming problem, essentially. So they solved this as a linear programming problem. What I did is to say, well, but instead of deciding which is going to be the trajectory of decrease, I am going to find the best possible trajectory of decrease. Okay, perhaps could be better than the predicted one, okay, than the linear one. And this gives a nonlinear programming. So, but this is good for me because I was a specialist in nonlinear programming and not exactly linear programming. So, okay. I advised this thesis, another thesis, similar thesis of another disease, schistosomosis, and things like that, and other thesis in optimization methods and so on.
Right. And speaking of master's work, you were the advisor of my PhD advisor, Luis Satoru Ochi. That makes you one of my academic grandfathers, alongside Professor Nelson Maculan, who in turn supervised Satoru during his PhD. Maculan also supervised my master's advisor. So what are your memories of working with Satoru?
Well, Luis Satoru was in the second year that I was in Campinas. So he was not in the first team that I advised, but he was in the second team. He was an excellent student. I taught 2 courses of optimization. He was degree A in both. Now I can say that because you remember very well very old things of the first course that you did. So I remember very well my students of the first 2 years, and then I don't remember anymore. Now I don't remember even thesis that I advised 2 years ago. My God. So he was very good, very nice. We became friends. We played volleyball together with other people, professors and students, and we participated in parties. I was popular. And he did a thesis that I remember his thesis about 2 methods of Broyden for solving nonlinear systems. We found a way of combining these 2 methods, find a criterion to choose one method or another method at each iteration. It seemed that the combination worked better than the 2 methods individually. we published a paper in Portuguese, in Portuguese, in the journal, the Computational Applied Mathematics, the journal that was being founded that year. They published papers in Portuguese, in English, and so on. So we published in Portuguese. Now the journal exists, but does not publish papers in Portuguese, only in English. Okay, so perhaps this is my only paper in Portuguese. The title was Sobre dos métodos de Broiden.
Very nice.
And that's it. I am happy that Luis Santoro made a very good career in discrete optimization. Unfortunately for me, he didn't want to continue in continuous optimization, but okay, it is okay.
Yeah, that was good for me.
It was good for you, of course.
Yeah, nice. Yes, it's great to hear that he was an excellent student, that you guys had a great time.
Yeah.
And how were you able to create such a big research group?
Well, Anand, I have a single recipe for maintaining a research group. It is very, very, very simple. You must have a weekly seminar. And this weekly seminar never must be interrupted, but never means never. I mean, if the next Monday I cannot give the seminar and so on, okay, find some other person, but never can be interrupted. So I founded the weekly seminar in 1979 and never was interrupted, okay? I organized the seminar at the beginning of the semester, and let it be every semester since 1979. And then this is the real condition, because after the weekly seminar, things occur spontaneously. So because people talk, people know each other, you are doing this, you are doing that, you are doing this, okay, maybe I do the thesis this way, we discuss the thesis is not okay, it's okay, and so on. So it is my only advice, maintain a weekly seminar, but maintain forever, and no without interruption. No, this week, no, this semester, no, and so on. No, maintain. I think that the fact that I created a big group and so on is due to the persistence in having the weekly seminar.
Yes, that's interesting. So it's not a complex recipe, but also it requires a lot of commitment and diligence.
It's a very simple recipe. Well, I did that in the optimization group, and perhaps we'll talk later about another group that I ruled out, that I use the same recipe.
Yeah, that's a great advice. You once told me that throughout your career, you tried to find a balance between 3 research directions: purely mathematical, solvers, and applications. Let's hear about your main contributions in each one of these tracks, starting with the first one.
Okay. Let me maybe insert the following. The most theoretical aspects of optimization are pure mathematics. Definitions, theorems, counterexamples, conjectures that are verified or not according to logical reasoning and nothing else. Okay? I think that I and my group, we have made some interesting and original theoretical contributions along several areas. What areas? Well, in the 80s, I developed a general theory for second methods. This means that, there were second methods, there were different theories and so on, and I developed a general theory where all the methods were included, another method that could be invented and so on. A second method for minimization, for solving nonlinear systems and from nonlinear squares, including the corresponding convergence theory. I think that it was a meaningful work. Another associated work was the introduction of a theory of second preconditioners. What does second preconditioners mean? A second precondition is that you generate preconditioners using the second equation. That is to say, you generate preconditions as if you were solving the problem with quasi-Newton methods, things like that. So you use Newton, you use a preconditioner that is a quasi-Newton preconditioner. And the general theory for second methods was published in Mathematics Computation or SIAM Journal of Numerical Analysis. I don't remember. One of these journals. In fact, I wrote this theory when people was beginning to not write theory about quasi-Newton methods anymore. So I could say, well, it was the last meaningful paper in quasi-Newton. Okay, so
it's like they're taking the last bus, right?
Yeah, more or less like that. Okay. But I think that it was, for some times, for me, it was the most relevant theoretical contribution that I have done.
That's for unconstrained optimization, correct?
It's general. I mean, the generality goes up to fixed point methods, So the fixed point methods could be constraint optimization, constraint minimization, nonlinear system, nonlinear least squares, and so on. I could put everything under the same umbrella.
Right. Okay.
I think that another interesting theoretical contribution, is what we call inexact restoration. It's a type of the paradigm for solving constraint optimization problems that now we adapted to a point of view in which you have inexact evaluation of functions. So imagine that when we have evaluation of functions, you can think that exactness is a constraint. So when you are evaluating exactness of function, you are going through an optimization problem without fulfillment of the constraint, but you can manage to improve the exactness. And so, so there is a parallelism between inexactness and constraint optimization.
Yeah,
so
got it.
I think this is another meaningful contribution as well. We worked a lot and we introduced sequential optimality conditions. Sequential optimality conditions are the real conditions that are used in practice. They are optimality conditions that don't depend on constant qualifications. That is to say, this explains why when you write a code for constraint optimization, you say, well, I test the KKT condition, but in fact you test the approximate KKT condition, and you don't care with constraint qualifications, and nobody cares with constraint qualifications. So why nobody cares with constraint qualification? Because in spite of that, minimizers could not satisfy the KKT condition, they always satisfied approximate KKT condition.
Right.
So this is a theory, okay? So the theory of sequential optimality conditions. And now many people work indeed, many people are, I use the sequential optimality conditions. So but many people is thinking optimization methods, constraint optimization methods in this way. Another relevant things that I think we did with my group is the introduction of the safeguarded augmented Lagrangian methods. That is the basis of the software AlgenCam, but this is theoretical, the theoretical basis of the software AlgenCam. Another meaningful contribution is the introduction of a kind of problems that we call OVO problems, order value optimization, that are problems in which the evaluation of the function or the constraints depends on the order of a set of functions. And this generalizes the notions that in risk measures in finance, like the VAR measure and so on. Okay, I think this is another theoretical contribution that is significant. Okay.
Right.
There are other small things, that some of them I don't remember anymore.
Yes, I'm not an expert on continuous optimization, but it's fascinating to hear about these very meaningful and impactful contributions of yours. And I'm sure the folks that are more into nonlinear optimization, continuous optimization are going to appreciate all of this. It's also nice for us to know what works you find it more relevant from the purely mathematical standpoint, considering that you have a broad range of papers and contributions over the years. So let's talk about the solvers now. Why don't you start telling me the story behind the Puma solver?
The story of the Puma solver is very, very interesting because the problem is the determination of thickness, absorption, and refraction of a thin film for different wavelengths using only transmittance data. So, let me show you. Imagine that this is a thin film. So, and you don't know which is the thickness. of the thin film, and you also don't know which is the things that the absorption coefficient and the refraction coefficient. And so what you do is you use a laser or something, and you emit some rays here, and you measure the transmittance here, okay? So using the transmitter, you want to know for each different wavelength, because there are rays of different wavelengths, you want to deduce which is the thickness, the refraction coefficient and absorption coefficient, okay? Okay, and the funny thing is this problem was presented to me by a professor of physics, Ivan Chabuleiron, who is my friend, who was my friend, Argentinian. He was a physicist of my university during a Sunday party. Of course, Argentina, a churrasco, okay? And he said, it is a simple thing, Mario. You are going to solve it in a few minutes. And sincerely, I agreed. Okay, yes. The fact that we worked at different stages of this problem during several years, producing several papers and generating PhD theses. The problem was that for a given wavelength, the determination of this coefficient was easy because there is a formula. But when you put all the wavelengths together, the curve that appeared made no sense at all. So it was kind of a contradiction. I mean, why? If the formula is correct for a single wavelength, you assume that it is correct, okay? Why, if you use the formula for different wavelengths, you obtain a crazy thing, you know? Individually, it is okay, but globally, it is not. Mm-hmm. So we work a lot with it, and finally, in some moment, we found the solution. The solution, in fact, was very simple. And the solution came from the dialogue. I mean, the solution came because I talked to Ivan, and I talked, and finally I discovered what Ivan knew about the problem that he had not told to me before. And when I knew what Ivan knew about the problem that it had not told to me before, yes, I say, okay, it is solved, because I am going to use in my code the things that you knew, and you hadn't told to me before. So the code was written by my colleague Ernesto Virgin, who is he is the guy that also wrote the code for AgenCan. You know, I write codes, okay, but my codes are not very. The logic is okay, but for instance, I don't avoid using GoTo. Yeah? Okay, I need GoTo. I use GoTo. No, don't come to me that no GoTo. This is forbidden. Okay. Things like that. I mean things like that. But the logic is okay. So, but why I told you this? Well, that the code of AgenCan was written by Ernesto. The code for Tuma was written by Ernesto as well. He's an excellent programmer, of course. Mm-hmm. And another funny thing is that once I'm looking at or somebody told me, I don't know, a site or a film or something that a guy of Thailandia was explaining how to use Puma, because it is used. Many times we received, it is used in the industry. We were told that it is used in the industry. So a guy, a friend of us, went to France and, yes, you are from Campinas. These guys are the ones that wrote this code Puma. Okay. It was a very nice experience. Okay.
Right. And what about AlgeCan?
Okay, AlgeCan. AlgeCan is an algorithm, a code for solving constraint optimization problems. It is based on a paradigm that, in fact, now it is called safeguarded augmented Lagrangian. But it was not our name. This name was invented by the other guy a few years ago. That, in fact, he decided to call our approach safeguarded augmented Lagrangian, and we adopted this denomination because I think it is good. Because we use that augmented Lagrangian, but okay, we safeguard it in some sense. Okay, and okay, it has a good theory. We write several papers completing the theory, or adding things, and so on. And the last paper that we wrote about AlgeCan was 2 years ago when we proved complexity, because complexity in nonlinear programming became fashionable some years ago. So, okay, we proved the correct complexity of Argencan as well. And it is an available software. It is available. It is in the web. I mean, everybody can use it. It is very well written, and it solves problems reasonably well. We really discovered that it is complementary to some other solvers that use another paradigm, essentially that use the paradigm of sequential quadratic programming, okay, or things related to sequential quadratic programming. Essentially, we could say more or less that the problems that there are problems that they solve and we don't solve, and there are problems that we solve and they don't solve. So you should use both things. Okay.
Yes, got it. So they're complementary.
They're complementary. Yes.
Right. You are one of the co-authors of a highly successful open source package that you developed with your son, Leandro, who is also a professor at Unicamp. Did you expect that package to be this successful, and how was the experience of collaborating with your son?
Okay, PACMOL is a software for establishing the initial position of particles in order to be used for starting a molecular dynamic simulation. So when you do a molecular dynamic simulation, you need to start from something. And usually what happened before PACMOL is that people put the molecules, and some of them become to be very close to another, and so energy explodes and you cannot do the simulation, okay? So PACMOL solves this problem with a geometric idea. Instead of trying to minimize the energy at the beginning of the process, we maximize the distances between the molecules. Okay, how this appears? Well, it appears in the living room of my house. For me, it appears in the living room of my house when Leandro told to me that, well, son, do you think that something can be done in this sense and so on? Okay, and so we had the idea of doing the essential things of PACMOL. So PACMOL is tremendously successful. We have two papers. Initially, we have two papers of PACMOL. The second one, that is the definite form of PACMOL, has, say, thousands of citations.
More than 7,000.
More than 7,000?
Yeah.
Okay. And they appear citations every year, every month, okay. And the number of downloads is astonishingly, because it is used. I mean, everybody uses it, really, everybody uses it. I have found people abroad and in other institutions and so on that told me, okay, Martinez, okay, PACMOL, yes, okay. Okay. It is very, very, very popular. And okay, it's the fruit of very successful collaboration with my son. I mean, I had other collaborations with my son Leandro, and I have collaborations with my son Julian as well. So, yeah, because optimization appears everywhere. You are an optimizer, so you must say to your students, okay, do optimization because optimization is everywhere, because everybody wants to minimize things, to fit curves, to fit models, and to take decisions, and all these things are optimization. So I work well with my son, with my two sons. I work very well. There is perfect synchronization.
Fantastic. Your other son is also professor at Unicamp?
My other son is a professor of food engineering.
Right. And you mentioned that optimization is everywhere. That's literally the title of the talk of our group to the freshmen, to the new students that come every semester, and sometimes we give a talk just to showcase optimization, and then that's the title of the talk. Exactly.
Yes.
All of these solvers are somehow part of the so-called Tango project, right?
Well, Tango project, this was an idea of Ernesto. He decided to put all the solvers in a single project. Tango is an acronym of Trustable Algorithms of Nonlinear General Optimization. It was Ernesto's idea, the idea of Ernesto.
Was it paying tribute to Argentina somehow?
Yeah, of course. The Tango, it involves essentially optimization software, really. Probably the best known software of Tango is the implementation of SPG. SPG is spectral projected gradient. This is very, very effective and simple method for large scale optimization. It's optimization when the constraints are sets in which you can project easily. Okay, so for instance, boxes is the the most natural set
Example.
of this kind. And it's very effective, and it's a method that we developed with Ernesto and with Marcos Raidan. So the Tango project does not have as many algorithms as we expected when it began. It has Argencan, OVO problems, and things like that. It was very ambitious when it began, and now, okay, it's a site when there are algorithms maintained by Ernesto, and there are algorithms that work. Okay, they are trustable, as the T says. Okay.
Okay. Now moving to the applications, I'm aware you created a research group dedicated to studying hydraulic applications. Could you please provide more details about it?
Yes, we created this group after the disaster of Brumadinho in 2019. In fact, it was funny because I decided when the disaster occurred, I decided to talk with some colleagues of numerical analysis of my department, saying, look at this, is it possible to model this or Navier-Stokes equations or things like that? And they said to me, well, yes, maybe it is possible, but okay, it is kind of difficult because this is not water, so the quality of this fluid is plasticity and things like this. And parallelly, a group in the Institute of Geosciences, of course, it was interested in this problem as well, and they had traveled to the region of Brumadinho, and they have data, and they have photographs, and they knew very well the real event. And they organized a big meeting in a largest auditorium of the university for talking about Brumadinho, about the disaster. And this meeting was, there were 400 people in the middle or something like that. Were great interest because, the disaster had occurred 1 month ago, and it was very fresh in the memory of everybody. And there were people of all the possible professions. Guess what? I want that you guess. What profession was the most frequent in this meeting?
The profession, like professors, or you mean the specific field?
The area.
Yeah, so mathematics, maybe?
No. You know what? Lawyers.
Really?
Law. Yeah.
Wow.
There were a lot of lawyers that were interested in different aspects of the disaster, and so, okay, it was funny. Well, the consequence is that the organizer of the meeting, Professor Jefferson Picanso, said, we would like to organize something, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. And we raised our hand. I said, okay, we are together, okay? And so the same day, I met with Jefferson in the restaurant. I said, okay, I am Mario Martinez, I am Jefferson, okay? So, okay, Jefferson, you create the group, and we enter with the mathematics of engineering or engineering mathematics subgroup, okay? So the engineering mathematics subgroup of CRIAP, yes, it exists since 2019, and we a seminar, a weekly seminar that every Friday 1 p.m. And it is working, and we have advisor thesis, and we have published papers, and we wrote a book with articles. Okay, it is going very well. I cannot say that we solved all the problems of dam breaking, because no, we didn't solve all the problems, but okay, we learned a lot, and we are in a good path in order to solve relevant problems. Yeah,
that's fantastic. And I wonder, where do you find the motivation to keep on doing relevant work?
Where do I find the motivation? Well, I'm going to cite. There is a poet, Rainer Maria Rilke, that has a book that is letters to a young poet. And in some point of these letters, the young poet asked Rainer Maria Rilke, the experienced poet, he asked, well, I want to know if I am really a poet, okay? And the answer is, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your poems are good or not. This doesn't matter. The real thing that makes you a poet is that you cannot, if you can live or you cannot live without writing poems. Okay, if you cannot live without writing poems, you are a poet. And otherwise, no. So this is the reason why I am a mathematician, but I am not a poet.
Yeah.
Even if I write poems, okay, but I am not a poem. I can spend all my life without writing, okay? But I am a mathematician, so my motivation is that, well, I cannot live without asking questions about algorithms, essentially about algorithms, about behavior of algorithms, about the relation between theory and practice. This is an obsession for me to look, well, there is theory, but sometimes theory has nothing to do with practice. But how is that? I mean, which is the relation? You know, I think about this all the time. I'm walking around the park because every day, and since it is very boring, I think, well, I am going to think something. And so I think about problems in mathematics, in numerical analysis, in optimization. It's essentially this.
It's like second nature to you. It comes just automatically.
Yeah, it comes naturally. So,
yeah, I
that's
get
it.
your point. Yes.
Yeah.
Incidentally, my wife has a copy of that book that you mentioned. She has a copy in
Yeah.
Portuguese, Cartas a Jovem Poeta.
Really.
Yeah,
I hope that my citation is correct, but because it is not. That it happens frequently to me that I cite something and it is not the correct one. If it is not the correct one, I think it is correct, the conclusion.
Right. Anyway, it's a fantastic message. I can relate to that. I think when you have passion and you do it because it's something that you cannot even control, it means that you really are into that and it's part of your life in a very profound manner. What can you say about the Brazilian community in continuous optimization nowadays?
Well, Brazilian community in continuous optimization is flourishing. And there are many, when I say many, I mean really many, young graduate students and recent PhD that are extremely talented and have the chance of having beautiful careers. This is a very strong statement that I make now. It is very impressive. In my seminars, the seminars of optimization, in seminars of other people, and so on. My God, and these young guys, where are they from? Why they know so many things? Well, it is very nice how the Brazilian community is flourishing. I am extremely proud of having taken part of the beginning of this
adventure, journey, story.
of this adventure. Yes, because now things that happen, okay, I say in my seminar, but in the seminar optimization of Campinas, blah, 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 are things that, well, many young people talk about things that I don't understand anymore. They talk about sequential optimality conditions that I initiated with other people, okay? I initiated, but I don't understand anymore what okay, of course I can say something, I can make some global comment, I mean, philosophical comment and so on, but not technical ones. I am lost already with the very technical ones. And they are not. I mean, it is very impressive. And in the rest of Brazil, the same thing is happening because there are people, good groups, strong groups of optimization, not only here in São Paulo, in Rio, but also in Santa Catarina, in Paraná, in Piauí, in Goiás, Northeast, Minas. Well, it is really very impressive how the community of continuous optimization have flourished all around Brazil.
That's fantastic to hear. Incredible.
It's really fantastic because,
Yes.
it's how I feel now. I am happy, but I am happy because I say, well, I have some responsibility with this. Okay,
absolutely.
I'm happy for that.
Yeah, you should be proud. And I hope this young talents that you mentioned, they can find important positions and relevant positions in their careers, both in academia and in the industry.
Yeah.
So that would be wonderful. What is your take on the current academic publication system and the impact measures associated with it?
Okay, it is a pity. I mean, what I think is that There are very important problems in the world. Okay, our world is full of problems. We have the climate change, we have the wars, we have the pandemics, the possible future pandemics, we have poverty, inequality,
Natural disasters, like
natural disasters, of course, natural disasters, and no problem can be solved without science, and no problem can be solved by a single science. Every problem needs 1, 2, 3, 4 science collaboration, not just competition. Competition, of course, naturally in some sense, okay. But what we need is collaboration. Mathematics with physics, with engineers, with biologists, sociologists, economists, and so on, putting together and beginning to think in problems, real problems, because our world is in danger. I don't know if we are having to have a world in the next century, you know? And so, in this environment, we look at these small things that putting a number to the journal in which you publish a paper in a specific scientific area that perhaps is known by very, very, very few people and don't have the possibility of application and relation with some important problems quite remote. And maybe this has a very good score because of that story of citations and so on. So I feel sad because of that, because I think that it is a lot of time and it is a lot of talent that is lost with these stupid things of scientometrics, the counting things. It is something that disturbed me very much, because of the realization that what is really important in this world, and that the world is in danger, and we need to cooperate. And the usual way of evaluating science and financing science and so on does not stimulate cooperation, does not stimulate collaboration, does not stimulate interdisciplinarity. If you want to have a nice career and so on, what you need to find is a very specific subject to make research, and this is a very profound, good research. Okay, then this needs to be done, and be well cited and published and so on in this specific site. So there is not the stimulus. People talk about pure mathematics and applied mathematics. I don't like this division. But what I think is that mathematics, every mathematics, should be stimulated to collaborate with other people, should be stimulated. The agency, the government should stimulate this kind of collaboration. And this stimulus does not occur in practice. Everybody talks a lot about interdisciplinarity. Yes, interdisciplinarity is important, interdisciplinarity is important. But in practice, it is not that way. Well, you mentioned that I didn't know that you were to ask me that, but this is a subject that I feel very, very deeply, you know. So I feel some emotion talking about that, because I think that we are losing our time.
It feels like we're going backwards.
We're looking in which world we live. I mean,
yeah, it feels like we're going backwards, right? Instead of going forward. When we care too much about this, it seems that we're, instead of nurturing collaborations, as you said, and trying to devise a real interdisciplinary work, we stay stuck because of the way the system is organized, right?
Yes. That's right. That's right. It is not a good deal from the individual point of view. It is not a good deal to collaborate, to look at other areas, to look at real problems. Well, no, you lost. It's a loss of time.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a problem. It's a problem. I don't think. I am not saying. And I know how to solve this problem. No, I don't know. I see that. Okay. I see the discussions in the CMPQ, CAPES, and so on, how to put a number to a score to each journal and so on. Oh my God. Recently I learned today, today or yesterday, I learned that one of the scores the journals gain from some institution, I don't remember why, but one of the most popular ones. You don't know how it's calculated because it is calculated by some artificial intelligence. So there is a black box. I'm not saying that the scores are ridiculous. No, maybe they are reasonable. I don't know. But there is a black box, because my research, your research, etc., in Brazil is subject to some program, some code, some algorithm that somebody did in an institution, but it's a black box. I don't know which is the calculation. Well, I'm not sure that is exactly this because I repeat, I knew this story of the black box today or yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
But I became surprised because every single number is stupid. I mean, counting situation, counting, but at least I know what it is. But to be subject to a score that I don't know what it is, it's crazy.
Yes, it's scary. Yeah.
It's scary, really
Yes,
scary,
yes.
because it is what is happening all the way in our life. We are subject to algorithms and algorithms. We don't know. We are.
Yes, and at the end of the day, people are now caring about the number of citations, a number of likes. So we are
Nice.
kind of
Yes.
so we're limiting ourselves to numbers to try to quantify everything, and that is doing a lot of damage to the field, to science, and to the career of people in general, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I share your concern. I know that's a very complicated problem, and I don't know honestly if anyone.
I don't know how to solve. No.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows how to solve this.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah. Mario, changing topics completely. While researching for our podcast, I accidentally stumbled upon a link listing your name as part of the cast of a Brazilian low-budget movie called Desalmados. I quickly found the movie on YouTube and I was amazed to see you in action, magnificently playing the role of a priest. Please tell me the story behind this totally unexpected event.
Thank you. Well, as I told you, I like theater, okay? So I participated occasionally of groups that make theater as a hobby many times. The story of Desalmados is the following. I was in the stadium of Guarani with my son, Julian, and Julian went to talk with some of his friends that are supporters of Guarani as well, and they were far away from me, 50 meters or some, probably. And one of them is a director, a young director of movies, cinema, and he looked at me from
A distance?
From a distance, and he said to my son, I need a person like your father for making a priest. Do you think he will accept? And Julian immediately said, surely he's going to accept. Of course, I accepted the same day. Yes, I accepted. I found that it would be very, very, very funny. Okay, in fact, it was very funny. I think that the Padre Divino,
Yes.
appears 2 times. The first time is nothing. The telephone and so on. The second time, I think that is a good performance of myself. I recognize. I think it was a very good performance.
I totally agree. I saw that. I was, astonished.
I managed to die in a very
dramatic way, right?
Realistic, dramatic way. But I am going to tell you another story related with this. I was full of blood over all my clothes. Not real blood, of course. Tomato sauce. And after leaving the scene, I went to a library, to a bookstore. I went to a bookstore. I wanted to buy a book for a present or something like that. And I was looking in the bookstore. I observed that one of the attenders in the bookstore was following me all the time. foreign. And then I picked the book. I went to pay it, and I asked to the one who seemed to be the owner of the bookstore. I said to him, "Well, please say to this girl, don't follow me. I am not here to steal books. I'll pay the book, okay." And then I realized that I was all covered with blood. I didn't realize that. So, of course, a guy comes to the bookstore all with blood everywhere, and here. Oh, okay. You know. Well, so this is the story of my participation in the Salmados.
This is brilliant. I recommend to everyone that they should watch that.
I don't recommend.
Yeah, that's.
It is very popular among my students.
Oh, yeah.
They frequently appear. Professor, this famous somebody. They took a picture and they put in the wall and so on.
So Mario, as if that weren't enough, you also wrote a play in Portuguese in 2014 called Romance no Cariri, Peça em Três Atos em Ritmo de Cordel, which in a loose translation means Romance in the Cariri, a play in 3 acts in the cordel rhythm. Cariri is an arid region rich in traditions in the northeast of Brazil, and cordel is a form of folk poetry. Part of this play was even performed at a semi-informal meeting in 2022. I must admit, I was positively shocked to learn about yet another unexpected facet of yours. Where did you find the motivation and creativity to write such a play? I actually read some of it and I was just astonished. I mean, it's mind-blowing to know that you have such an incredible hidden talent.
Well, as I told you, I trained in my childhood to make verses, rhymes. So I am good making rhymes. I am usual to do that. And occasionally I do that for fun. I got interested in cordel literature through a contact with a popular poet that now lives in Pará, I think. The contact was initiated because we both participated of a forum of poetry around 1999 or more or less, an Argentinian forum of poetry that disappeared in 2001 because the crisis of Argentina economy. So we had many talks about cordel, and once even he was visiting me in Campinas. I lost his contact many years ago. So suddenly, once I had the idea of Romance no Cariri, and I first wrote a short poem telling the story, but it's a poem of 20 lines or something like that I published in that old forum, or I didn't publish. I'm not quite sure. But then at Alexia, I decided to write a play. And this is a result. I wrote the play, in verses. And I must confess, I like the play. I think that it is a good work. And it deserves, I think that it deserves to be interpreted. But of course, I have no patience to find theater people interested. The first part of the play was represented in a party or something like that in some years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I would like to see they interpreted the performance and so on. Okay.
Yes. Who knows in the future? I mean, from what I saw is, I mean, I'm not an expert, but it's just incredible. One would not expect that from a scholar that works with mathematics and optimization to produce such a form of art, and it's just as I said, just fascinating. Mario, do you ever miss living in Argentina?
Yes. Buenos Aires is a very nice place to live. So yes, I could say that I miss Bariloche as well, but okay, I lived in Bariloche 1 year and a half or something, I don't know. But I miss Buenos Aires, yes. But my life is in Brazil. I will continue to be in Brazil. My family is here, my grandson, my granddaughter, my work, many friends. Yeah, I love Brazil. I love Brazil too. Yes, I love Brazil.
But if Brazil plays against Argentina, you will support Argentina for sure.
Nowadays I support Argentina, but there was some years that I didn't support Argentina when Brazil played. That game that maybe you remember in 1990.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was a kid and I remember that.
Argentina won, Brazil 0. But Brazil, the team of Brazil was much, much better than the team of Argentina. and I was supporting Brazil that game. Incredibly,
Wow.
I was supporting Brazil. I wanted the victory of Brazil. Well, but okay. Argentina,
Yes.
okay. So it is not true that all the time I supported Argentina against Brazil. So presently, yes, I really support Argentina against Brazil. But maybe in some future, I suppose that, that Brazil returns to have players like Socrates, Zico, that team of 1982. Well, I supported the team of 1982 with real passion, the game between Argentina and Brazil in 1982, I supported Brazil because the team was marvelous, So if in the future Brazil has a team like that and the team of Argentina is not as good as the present one, that the present one is very, very, very good, okay, maybe I could support Brazil again. So I'm not so fanatic in this sense.
That's interesting to know. What do you think about the new president of Argentina?
Well, it is a disgrace for Argentina, for Latin America, for the world, in every sense. I mean, I cannot say nothing positive because he is terrible from the moral point of view, from the ethic point of view. He is racist. He follows a stupid economic theory. He's an enemy of all kind of cooperation between human beings. He's radically individualist. He's cruel. He's a cruel person because many times you can say, well, this is a terrible, bad government and so on, but he's cruel. He seems to have pleasure with the disgrace of other people. It's a disgrace, really.
Yes.
It's a disgrace. In particular, it's a disgrace for science and for education. Well, I hope that he will disappear from the scenario as soon as possible. Maybe the next election, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very sad to see Argentina struggling economically and socially. And I just hope things improve. Not that Brazil is doing much better, but right now I think Argentina needs a lot of help, international help maybe. And let's hope for the best in the years to come.
Yeah.
Mario, do you have any regrets?
I have no big regrets. No, big regrets I don't have. Sometimes, nevertheless, I find myself asking some questions about that only my father or my mother could answer. Some trivial questions sometimes appear. How was this? And when I see people that is alive, I say, well, only my father or my mother could answer this question. And that time I regret not to have asked the question when they were alive. So it's the only thing that I frequently I have this kind of regret, but big regrets, no. As I told you, I think that many things in my life were determined by external circumstances. But the decisions that I took were reasonable ones. I mean, I cannot say, this was a good mistake. Perhaps had it been good to decide to go to Lyon when I was invited by Professor Corominas? I don't know, but okay. It was good what I did. I mean, my life is reasonable now, so okay.
No, it's more than reasonable. It's just incredible, fantastic, amazing, wonderful. And would you like to leave a final message to our viewers and listeners, especially the youngsters?
The world has very, very, very big problems, and we need talented people taking account of these very, 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 very big problems, and these people must cooperate. To be concentrated only in our individual careers, can be good, can be reasonable, but it is not enough. Essentially, it is not enough. The world today needs another things than other things. So, okay, this would be my message to the youngsters that, well, try to study, try to cooperate, try to make things up in the most honest possible way, and think in your world, think in your people, think in your country, think in your family. I don't know.
Yes, yes.
It is not true that you are not going to find happiness with that. No, you are going to be happy. More, okay.
Yes, yes. Got it. So the idea is to be less self-centered, to think more broadly and act collectively, right? So that would be in a nutshell your message.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, Mario, I had a wonderful time talking to you. This was a very entertaining conversation. I can't thank you enough.
Well, no, I must thank you as well. You are a very good interviewer, really. And, well, many thanks. I am very thankful.
Yes, muchas gracias. Muito obrigado. Thank you very much for your time. It was truly an honor to have you here. You are one of the giants of our field, and it has been a treat. So I hope to meet you in person soon, Mario.
Okay, obrigado a você.
Thanks. Ciao. Bye.
Ciao.